Right, let's talk more about the housing crisis in the country. Human Settlements Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi joins us now for more on that. Minister, good evening. Good to have you, and congratulations on your entering the seventh administration. The news, of course, that you are hearing there are not new to you yourself, because this is what exactly you've been dealing with. One of the instruments that you certainly thought are going to be helpful for you in addressing this question is the draft white paper on human settlements, because part of what you need to want to address there is the accreditation of municipalities to administer the National Housing Program. Let's talk firstly about the timelines. It was expected that this process would have been wrapped up by April 2024. We're in July now. What are we looking at?
Good evening, Thabo. Thank you very much for the well wishes, and to the viewers. Firstly, I think just listening to the clip, sometimes it's a bit difficult when we talk past each other. I have extended a hand and a door for civil society for engagement. And I don't think starting by saying because people don't live in shacks, don't understand. One, I lived in a shack when I was young. When I did my matric, I understand what living conditions of people in the shack are. But secondly, the issue of us addressing the backlog in terms of housing, as you say correctly, the white paper policy is one of the fundamental ways of us being able to deal with long and sustainable way of responding to the challenges. We did intend to finish by April. Actually, wanted to say by the time we go to elections, we should have had the policy being adopted, cabinet adopting it, and therefore implementing now. It was civil society, together with some of the academia, that requested me to extend the time for consultation, but also requested that we set a task team that comprises of the department, that comprises of civil society, that comprises of academia, that can go chapter by chapter of the policy and drill down on the issues that they felt that they still needed to be dealt with. I will be meeting with that team in the coming 2 weeks so that we can actually try and wrap up the policy and take it to cabinet. Yeah. So that's the first thing that we need to do.
So one of the things that would have been raised, and whether you think this is going to be a bottleneck, I mean, it's one amongst the one you've mentioned of meaningful consultation, but the PI Act, or the Prevention of Illegal Eviction and Unlawful Occupation of Land Act 19 of 1998. Some in the civil society think it needs a relook in terms of how it is phrased in the white paper.
Look, we'll look into it. They have raised it with us as well. The law previously was not with us. It has been transferred to the department. So we will be able to, both in terms of consultation, because what we want to do is to finalize the process of the white paper. Once it's done, then all the acts that needs to be reviewed and be positioned properly to respond to the challenges of today in terms of human settlements, but also ensuring that we provide shelter, are responded to. So all the acts can only be amended and consulted upon after we have finished the white paper term.
So how are you then, outside of the white paper, at this particular point, going to ensure that you strengthen municipalities and provinces to be able to carry out some of this work, financial resources, non-financial support, etc.?
Look, there are various mechanisms that we have been implementing and will continue but strengthen. I do want to say part of what we have to address, there are few provinces that we'll have to deep dive into. Gauteng is one of them. In terms of when you look at the beneficiaries previously, you'd find that beneficiaries are administered by municipalities. We would want to continue to do that and strengthen the capacity of municipalities to do that, but we want to utilize a digital platform so that there isn't a manipulation of the process, and also we can be able, all of us, transparently see this type of a beneficiary where they are. My experience even during campaign, Thabo, has been when a senior citizen asks that I've been on the waiting list, and then they give me their ID number, and then I confirm that indeed they are on the waiting list or they've been allocated to a project, then there is a level of relief, which shows that what people want, as much as they understand that the house might not come to them today, but they wanted the assurance that I'm going to benefit, whether when you need to answer that and where. So that's what we need to do in working together with the provinces and municipalities. We have worked on the framework, reviewed our accreditation system. What was happening previously is that the municipalities were accredited to be developers, whether level 1 or level 2. And you find that municipalities sit with that level of accreditation for years without review. We've changed the process to say annually we will do assessment. When they are not performing, the accreditation status will be taken. If they are doing well, then it will be improved. And those municipalities that shows capacity, that shows even if it's secondary cities or non-metros, they will be accredited even if it's level 2, as long as they show capacity to deliver and they are able to meaningfully contribute to the development and improvement of our sector. We've worked together with Salga on this matter, and we're confident that in the partnership we have with Salga, we will continue to improve on the delivery of service.
So you mentioned the elderly there, so let's start there, because one of the issues that is sought guarantee is that prioritization of the elderly in terms of benefiting from the program, but two, issues of gender-based violence and gender equity in terms of people who will then get these title deeds for RDP homes. How is that going to be addressed?
What I've done just at the beginning of this year, I wrote to all MECs, which I will be doing a follow-up now. What I'd written to them is to say, according to the records that I have, this per province, these are the following number of senior citizens that are sitting on your database that needs to be prioritized. The MEC, what it needed to do is to confirm the number and give me an allocation per project, how many will be allocated and the time frame they will be allocated. This was to emphasize on the issues that we've raised around prioritization of the senior citizen, because it doesn't make sense that you walk into a shack, that water is literally on your knee size when it's raining, and you have a senior citizen that literally can't even walk or run. And this is an obligation to us as government to be able to respond to those citizens. So that's why we've written to the MEC. So in the first MINMEC, one of the reports we'll be expecting from the provinces, as all our MECs have been appointed now, quite a number of continuity, though there is change as well in some of the provinces, and we'll take them on board and expect these reports. In relation to other areas of ensuring that we can prioritize these individuals and senior citizens, it's through the digital system, because we will be able to automatically ensure that the allocation is done in such a manner, or the technology, it's allowing to prioritize utilizing AI to prioritize them automatically on the system when they are elderly and, for example, even people with disability, because the disability sector has come out strongly. I will also be engaging with them and bringing them on board, both in terms of beneficiaries, but also as participants in terms of economic opportunities. We have what we call set-aside table in the sector, and we've set aside for women, we're doing well. We set aside for youth, we are not yet there. And the people with disabilities, those will be upscaled so that we are able to play meaningful contribution in terms of economic transformation for the most vulnerable and poor, previously disadvantaged individuals.
Let's get back then to the conversation on the human settlement challenges. The Minister at Human Settlement, Mmamoloko Kubayi, joining us for that conversation. So, Minister, before the break, I was saying part of what you seek to also achieve with the white paper is that shifting of powers to be able to give you control over state land, to be able to also, you can address the issue of the ability to expropriate land for human settlement. Do you think you will be able to find synergies with your counterpart at this point?
Definitely, we had already started. We started at the time it was Minister Tilil. And we continued with Minister Zigalala. I am expecting we will continue. We've agreed to meet on Tuesday with the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure to start dealing with the issues around land for human settlements, not only land, but state buildings. So what we are looking for, Thabo, is state buildings in the inner cities that are owned by the state. Would want Public Works to facilitate for those to come into the hands of human settlements so that we can convert them into residential units, such as your social housing, but also not only for rental, but also for ownership. That especially in responding to public servants through our fleece models as well. That's what we want to do. On the land, we have started. The pace in terms of the transfers has been a bit moving slowly. And in terms of planning in the areas, our difficulty mainly now, it's with municipalities where the SPLUMA approvals are taking longer, which as well, we've been talking to Minister Nkadimeng. We will now talk to Minister Hlabisa to assist us in terms of turnaround time by municipalities to be able to respond to our applications as human settlements in terms of SPLUMA, because we cannot develop those properties or those land parcels unless we are able to get the municipalities to do the approvals on time. So some of the issues, sometimes we find that is capacity. We have, as human settlements said, if there are issues of capacity, we're willing to work with the municipalities to ensure that there is secondment of capacity in their planning units so that we do not have delays. Yeah. So that's one of the things as we talk about collaboratively working together and collectively as cabinet, because some of these issues, you cannot achieve them alone as a department or as a minister. You need your colleagues, you need the entirety of cabinet to be with you. And what is good is about this one is that we've been part of the IMC, and that has been chaired by the deputy president. We're hoping that the IMC will be resuscitated because it has been a useful platform for us as human settlement to be able to get progress.
One of the issues, and we've been actually beginning to reach out to you on this, and whether National is looking at it as you're speaking of on the establishment of settlements, is this container housing in Alexandra, and there are varying explanations as to why that particular project is now lying dormant. One of which is there was no environmental assessment that was done and therefore has not been established as a settlement. There's no provision, for example, of amenities and so on and so forth. Are you looking into that? Are you intervening at any level in that project?
This is one of the areas that the SIU had to look into. If you look at this, this project is together with the one in Tshwane and the Dalana in Limpopo. And as well the one in Eastern Cape, Duncan Village. This was one of the areas where they were trying to intervene, a good intention of interventions during COVID-19, where the issues of social distancing was affecting communities. And one of the priorities was to say, let's try and assist communities to be able to have a space and communities not to infect each other during COVID and as they stay in the informal settlements. The unfortunately part of it is that the process was not done properly, but also even orientation of our communities. I must say, a major issue, even if we can resolve the problem, is that communities in our country still believes in brick and mortar. And when you bring alternative technologies, they are not yet at that level where they are receptive. So one of the issues around this container issue, it's just the reception by communities not willing to accept them as something that they can utilize. So we will be looking into it to finalize it in this administration in the coming few months within this financial year together with the MEC, so that there are no projects that are lying. Gauteng, one of the issues that will be my priority in Gauteng and talking together with the MEC is to be able to go into all the projects that incomplete. Remember, my priority in the last administration was also blocked projects, where projects were standing idle, not finished, and people were saying, please assist us in completing these projects. We will as well go into Gauteng, into that. Those projects where there's not been water and sanitation into them, will complete them. So this is one of the projects that we'll pay attention to, Sam.
Speaking of the community orientation, so there's, of course, the challenge of RDP houses being resold, if you like, and you're trying to deal with that by saying in the white paper there needs to be a period in which you are not allowed to sell the RDP house. So you have situations like the people who would have been moved in Eerste Fabriek. Some of them, they say apparently they would have sold those stands to other people, while now government is coming up with a plan to resettle them somewhere else. So there are people who want to trade with RDP houses while I suppose they find other alternative of settlement. How are you dealing with that?
Look, Thabo, it's not an easy one because currently, actually, the law says that you can sell the RDP after 8 years. So you own the RDP. Once you are after 8 years, then you can sell. But the issues around enforcement and monitoring. So policing of this is one of the issues which is a bit of a challenge over time, because you find society, then they sell, and then the person can't benefit, they end up in the informal settlement. What I can assure citizens that once a person has benefited, they can't benefit secondly, because once you have been a property owner and you are registered as a property owner, you are not able to benefit again. The only issue we still have is that, for example, though if it's a family, the descendant, then they will be lacking a house ordinarily, which they would have been in a house if it was not sold. So it's a conversation that we need continuously with communities. And that's why one of the issues when we deal with our business plans in municipalities, for example, one of the issues I had to start working on today as I got first day into office was the business plans for the metros. And majority of them have been rejected. I've rejected them and not approved them on the basis that they do not have a social facilitation. Why social facilitation is important? It's because as we do this planning, as we do this work, we need to have social facilitators, especially the NGOs, playing a role in engaging the communities. And this has proven to work better, Thabo. And where we have really engaged the communities and utilized the expertise that are able to have a conversation with communities, we see lasting solutions. We see communities being part of the solution, not just receiving only in terms of the benefits. So it's one of the work that we'll have to continue. It doesn't have a silver bullet to say this is the solution, but we've got to be able to work with the communities and bring them on board and do advocacy work continuously, but work with the NGOs to help us. And this is one of the areas, as you remember last year, when we had the NGO summit, it was my commitment that we'll bring them forth into the participation and helping us in finding lasting solutions in human settlements programs.
So, I mean, there are a number of other areas we could go into, but because of time, let's limit it to this. The final one that I want to talk to you about, especially since you mentioned the Minister of Kokda. It was then Minister Nkadimeng. Of course, it's Minister Hlabisa now. But when she was here, we also asked her this question around grants that are unspent. Just the other day, we were talking about Tshwane, a report coming out saying close to 1.6 billion would have been unspent. But part of the areas where the grant is not spent is the upgrading of human settlements. Is there some collaborative work that needs to happen there?
There is, we in the metros, we directly transfer grants as the Human Settlements Department. This is the Urban Development Grant, what we call USDG, and the Informal Settlement Upgrading Grants. What has been the challenge over the time, the last, I can say the last 5 years, has been definitely the performance of the municipalities. At somewhere you provide support, then they come back and show improvement. One is around the planning, where you find that municipalities, because they are required to say, before they can put a project for funding, at least they must have primary work being done, so foundation work being done in terms of procurement, or even having panels in place, knowing where the approvals needs to be done, all those things. And you find that municipalities don't do. And there isn't capacity to be able to do project management as well in the municipalities. We have had a conversation. We've been doing even in some point joint MINMEC. We'll continue to do that with Minister Hlabisa to work and find solutions, especially in the non-metros, because we can directly intervene in the metros. In the non-metros, we need Kokda to help us. They have programs that they run with MISA, which can be able to support in terms of technical capacity, and will rely on them. But again, the issue for us in terms of municipalities is municipal oversight in terms of those who need to be able to ensure that spending happens. For example, budgets are passed on time. So one of the things that we do, we pay attention to all the metros to make sure that they are able to approve their budgets on time. And we are able to insist that they should be, because it's in our interest as human settlement to see those things. So you have to play an active role in engagement with the municipalities where you directly give that grants to be able to see the output. We have regular min-max as well, where we sometimes have focused on municipalities to ask them to give us turnaround plans, where we see there is a potential non-performance. So it's those things where we are able to redirect the funds, we also redirect. So it's those things that we've got to be able to utilize various tools to be able to get an output in terms of the work. So we will continue to do that work and actually intensify it. But we think the collaborative work, especially with the support of Salga, will be able to see the improvements in our work.
We appreciate your time, Minister. Thank you very much for coming on this evening. The Minister of Human Settlements there, that is Mmamoloko Kubayi.